are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for we are back here on the GSM.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, December 5th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So, we're going to start off the show. We are going to preview tonight's big NFC North matchup between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Jaguars placing Trevor Lawrence on injured reserve. He's going to undergo shoulder surgery, but of course he suffered that concussion on Sunday against the Texans. And Azeez Al-Shire, he is going to be suspended. That suspension is going to be upheld. He tried to appeal it, but it's going to be upheld. Texans weren't very happy about it. But that did, like I said, the suspension ended up getting upheld. And Trevor Lawrence probably out for the rest of the year. So we'll talk about that. Then in the third part of the show, we will also get into a couple of things. Discussing the Cowboys. We'll talk about them during the show. And we'll also get into talking about Aaron Rodgers as well. That'll be the third part of the show. Talking about Aaron Rodgers, just some recent comments that he made regarding, wanting to continue to play for the Jets. I know we've discussed that before, but he also, brought it up again when the media was talking to him. So I wanted to get into what he had to say. And then, like I said, we'll get into the Cowboys, talking about the possibility of, hey, maybe they could still make the playoffs and whether or not that's realistic or not. And then we'll talk about the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Who's the favorite to win that? We'll take a look at the top candidates for that award. So, with that being said, let's get into the first topic, which is discussing the Packers and the Lions. So, this is a big game. This is a huge game, and even if the Lions do lose this game, they still lead the NFC North. But then you have to worry about the Vikings as well if they win on Sunday when they take on the Falcons. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this game. Now, the Lions did win the first matchup between these two teams earlier this season. Jordan Love wasn't 100% in that game, did not play well. The Lions ended up getting the win. Josh Jacobs had a big first half, but didn't really do much in the second half. And, if you go back to last year, the Lions won in Green Bay, and then the Packers beat the Lions in Detroit on Thanksgiving. So we'll see if that kind of plays out the same way. Now, looking at this game, the Lions have a lot of injuries going into this matchup. They had a ton of guys get hurt during the game on Thanksgiving last week against the Bears. And, they're kind of shorthanded going in. Also, their offensive lineman, Taylor Decker, he's out for this game. So that's a big piece on that line. But yeah, just a lot of guys on defense that are all out. So you do kind of worry about the Lions being shorthanded for this game. And you think the Packers are going to take advantage of that. I think Jordan Love has definitely looked better these last few weeks. He looked pretty good against the Dolphins on Thanksgiving. So, I kind of like the Packers, going into this game. And, I think in the second half of the game last week between the Lions and the Bears, the Bears kind of held the Lions down. You know, they only scored 7 points in the second half, and that was the Sam Laporta touchdown, the second Sam Laporta touchdown of the day. Now, the Packers, I think their defense is pretty good as well. They have a Defensive Player of the Year candidate in Xavier McKinney, former New York Giant, of course. And I think they're starting to round into form a little bit, and they're starting to rely on Josh Jacobs a lot. He's had some big games late in the season here, and I think he's going to be a major factor tonight, especially when you have all the injuries on defense for the Lions. So I expect this to be a good game. And then on the other side, the Packers defense, like I said, is a good unit. It's starting to round into form, the team as a whole, but, they're going to have their hands full with what the Lions are going to bring them. Jared Goff has played well this year. You got the two running backs, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He scored a touchdown in the last game between these two teams. So, you got them. You got Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams. There's a lot to deal with this Lions offense. I think it's gonna be back and forth. Packers are 3.5-point underdogs in this game. So, I think this is going to be a close game, though. And like I said, I kind of lean towards the Packers in this matchup because of the injuries that the Lions are dealing with. And I feel like the Lions, at some point, they are due for a loss. I don't think they're going to finish with one loss on the season. So I think it could be this one. My concerns, Jordan Love, the interceptions have been a problem this year, but I think, the last couple weeks, he's done a better job at limiting the turnovers. Although, there were some missed opportunities in these last two games for there to be turnovers off of Jordan Love, but didn't happen. And right now, he's putting together a good season. 20 touchdowns to 11 picks. The interceptions are still a little high. He's got 2,500 passing yards. And then for Jared Goff on the season, Jared Goff has almost 3,000 yards passing. He needs 18 more to get to there. He's got 22 touchdowns to 9 picks. And, you got three running backs in this game that are all playing really well. Josh Jacobs, Jahmyr Gibbs, and David Montgomery. Right now, the leading receiver for the Packers is Jaden Reed. He's got 693 receiving yards on the day. Last year on Thanksgiving, Christian Watson had that big game. He had that big reception to open up the game, and then he also had a touchdown in the game as well. Actually, one of the big injuries from this game, you got a couple of defensive backs that are out. I mean, mainly Jair Alexander, their top corner. He's out. He's dealing with a PCL injury. So he's out for this game. Could be back the following week, but that's something to keep an eye on. That's something that the Lions can exploit with him not being there. And then also Romeo Doubs still dealing with that concussion. He's out for this game. So, they're going to have to rely on Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. Those guys are going to have to, continue to step up in Dobbs' absence. But they still got Tucker Kraft, who's been doing well for them this year. Still waiting on Luke Musgrave. You kind of forget about him. Because last year it was more Musgrave than Tucker Kraft. And then this year it's kind of changed. He's still on injured reserve. His expected return is week 15. So, and then on the Lions side, like I said, they are dealing with a lot of injuries. Alex Anzalone's on injured reserve. His expected return is week 17. So at least they're going to get him back, hopefully, at some point. But yeah, you just see a lot of guys, and I even brought it up. Decker on the offensive line, but you just look, and also Khalif Raymond, one of their receivers, he's out as well with the foot injury. Lions are dealing with a lot. And looking at the league rankings for these teams, Lions are 4th in passing yards per game. Packers are 15th. Both teams are top 5 in rushing yards per game. Lions are 4th, Packers are 5th. And then points per game, Lions are 1st, and the Packers are 8th. Then defensively, both teams around the same against the pass. Packers are 20th. Lions defense is 25th. Against the run, both teams are actually top 10. Packers are 8th, and the Lions are 5th. And then points allowed, Lions defense is 2nd. Packers defense is 9th. So, the teams are even. Um, Almost. I mean, you would definitely lean towards the Lions as obviously being the better team at this point, and the Lions did win the head-to-head matchup earlier this season. But like I said, I am going to lean towards the Packers in this game, and I'm going to say they win outright. I think they get even. Lions at some point are due for a loss. I feel like this might be the game where that happens. They're kind of vulnerable with the injuries. And I just think, Jordan Love has been playing better. He's kind of getting himself further away from the injuries that he dealt with earlier this season. Josh Jacobs has been playing really well for them. What a pickup. We talk about Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. Well, he's kind of like that distant third in terms of, signings from this offseason that you would say, hey, that team did a great job bringing him in. And this is just offensive players, too. I mean, you look at defensively, like I said, they brought in Xavier McKinney, and he's been great for them. So, yeah, I just think with the injuries, it might be a little too much for the Lions to overcome here. And I think the Packers want to get revenge for that game that they lost at home earlier this year. And the final score of that game, so I was trying to remember what it was. It was back in Week 9. It was 24-14, and it was the bad weather. Now they're playing inside. It should be a really good game. This is one of the best games of the slate. Slate is kind of lackluster this week. This is a great way to start off Week 14. So I like the Packers to win this game. I'm going to say final score. I'll say final score is 31-28. Packers win. And now we get them to 10-3. Lions would drop to 11-2. So, that this would be a big game for the Lions to lose if that happens. I mean, they would still be up on the Packers, but then the following week you got the Bills at home as well. Lions actually do kind of have a tough schedule down the stretch. You got the Packers, the Bills at home. Then you're at the Bears, who almost beat you. Then you're at the 49ers, which the 49ers, who knows what their record's going to look like at that point. Many people circled that game, including myself, as, hey, that might be for the number 1 seed, but it's not going to happen. And then they got the Vikings at home. So, not easy. Now, the Lions definitely got a loss or two within the remaining games there. So, but this would be a big win for the Packers. Like I said, I'm going to take them. They have scored 30 points in their last 2 games. So, we'll see how it goes. But I like the Packers in this spot. Let me know what you guys think. Who do you have winning? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our first break of the show now. And then when we come back, we will talk about Trevor Lawrence being placed on injured reserve. And, what's next for the Jaguars with this season and what we have remaining with them here in 2024. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the second part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about Trevor Lawrence and him being placed on injured reserve by the Jaguars. He'll be undergoing shoulder surgery, And yeah, it's just been a very disappointing season for him and the Jaguars. I thought that they would bounce back. I didn't have them winning the division or making the playoffs this year, but I did think that they were going to, have a bounce back season in a way. I did have them winning 9 games, but just everything fell apart for them. They had a lot of guys, kind of, not live up to expectations. I think of Travis Etienne as a guy that, kind of disappeared this year. Hasn't really done much. He was one of the top running backs last year, and, he's been non-existent. You've also had injuries to your receivers. Christian Kirk was hurt this year. Evan Ingram was hurt this year. The offensive line, continues to be a problem. So it's been a disappointing year, and they're going to go through some massive changes. But Trevor Lawrence did not have a good year either. And just like last year, because last year he dealt with a ton of injuries. I mean, if you remember down the stretch, they had C.J. Beathard had to come in and play a game for them. He came back against the Browns and he threw 3 interceptions, and people said he probably shouldn't have played in that game. But it's just been a tough year, and he took that hard hit by Azeez Al-Shire, and on top of that, he had the AC joint injury in his shoulder, so he's going to undergo surgery on, that was a mouthful. He's going to undergo surgery to repair that in his left shoulder, and he's pretty much out for the year, and as he should be. The Jaguars, this is a lost season for them. He shouldn't have to come back. Mac Jones is going to be the starting quarterback moving forward. That's, how it should be. And let Trevor Lawrence rest up and, come back next year strong. But it's going to be interesting to see what the Jaguars do. Who they bring in as the next head coach. I mean, you still got Doug Peterson is still there as of right now. And I say that because, you have, some coaches that got let go during the year, and I think some people thought he could have been next, but I guess they're going to wait and let this play out, and then they'll make their decision at the end of the year. And who knows who they could bring in? I mean, there's some offensive coordinators that I think maybe you give consideration to. I know Ben Johnson is a guy that many teams are going to want to try to get. And you still got some veteran guys out there. Mike Vrabel and even Bill Belichick. It'd be interesting if Belichick went to Jacksonville. I mean, maybe it happens. Who knows? I don't know if Mac Jones is going to like that. Now that I think about it. But it'll be interesting what they end up doing. I was kind of hoping that Doug Peterson would be the guy, because it was nice to see the Jaguars bounce back in 2022 after the disaster of the season before that with Urban Meyer as the head coach, and you thought that they were going to be trending up. And I think last night I came across the highlights from the playoff game against the Chiefs where they almost beat the Chiefs. Mahomes gets hurt in that game. They played that game close, but they ended up getting knocked out of the playoffs. So you thought, okay, that was a good stepping stone for the Jaguars. Now they're going to be even better the following season. And they were 8-3, but then they collapsed, and they ended up finishing the year 9-8. And then this year, just the wheels completely fell off. And Trevor Lawrence, he ended up finishing the year completing 60.6% of his passes for 2,045 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions in 10 games this season. And like I said, Mac Jones, he's going to take over. On Sunday, he wasn't that bad. 20-32 for 235 yards, 2 touchdowns in that game. So, I mean, at least, with the Jaguars, with the backup quarterback situation, it's a guy that has started before. It's not like they're throwing somebody out there that has never played. But I don't know. If you're a Jaguars fan, do you want them to tank and try to get Travis Hunter? Or someone? I mean, you're not going to get a quarterback. So, I mean, Travis Hunter would probably be the next best thing. You just and the other thing too is you just gave Trevor Lawrence that huge contract. That's the other thing. Even before the injuries, wasn't really living up to the contract with the year that he was having. And you hope that next year he's healthier, and it looks like they have a player in Brian Thomas Jr. He's got 765 receiving yards. He's got 6 touchdowns on the year. He looks like he's going to be a good player. And I want to see if Travis Etienne bounces back with the Jags. Because, they could have a nice combination between him and Tank Bigsby. Because Tank Bigsby has run the football well at times this year. And you look at, their average. Tank Bigsby is averaging 5.36 yards per rush. And Travis Etienne is averaging 3.91. Last year was like the opposite. I mean, he had a great season. And going back to 2023, he finished over 1,000 yards rushing. Had 11 touchdowns. Actually, he averaged 3.78, which is actually lower. That's kind of surprising. I would have thought that would have been higher. But still, I mean, he finished with over 1,000 yards. This was an 1,000-yard rusher. And this year, he's not even at 400 yet. So it's just, like I said, it's been a tough year. Injuries have played a huge role. But, they're 2-10. It's not just the injuries, too. I mean, they just have taken a huge step back. And had they had a better season, this division's winnable. I mean, the Texans, it's not like they only have run away with it because the division has been so poor this year. So, it's been tough. But, did the Jaguars make a mistake in paying Trevor Lawrence that big contract? I mean, listen, I said it before the season started. Other than Joe Burrow and Jared Goff, and who else am I missing? Tua. Well, Tua's had a good year. Last year he had a good year. But I don't think he deserved $50+ million. I don't think Dak deserved his contract of $60 million, but the Cowboys were forced to pay it. I don't think Trevor Lawrence deserved to be paid, what was it, $53 million per year? I don't think he deserved it because he hasn't really played well enough to get that kind of money. Like, at least with Jared Goff and Joe Burrow, like, Joe Burrow's made it to a Super Bowl. And, Jared Goff, his team's made the playoffs now. Last year they made the playoffs, and, he's been better each year as the Lions starting quarterback. The first year, obviously, that team wasn't ready to compete for anything, although, they played tough in some games. And, they pulled off an upset or two. But that's who you give that contract to. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, yeah, he made the playoffs, but last year was kind of a disappointment. But you know what? They really feel like he is the guy. And there are people out there that are still skeptical. And I thought he was going to come out and bounce back, but he didn't. And then injuries kind of ended his season. And, now here we are. But for me, the Jaguars got to make it a priority to try to, fix this offensive line, continue to surround him with a good supporting cast, and hopefully get the head coach right. Because, again, I thought it was going to be Doug Peterson, but that turned out not to be the case. And now he's going to be on his third head coach. And, you kind of worry about that because he's still a young quarterback. And, you see how that has played out across the league for certain guys. It's just, it's not the best. And they're not going to move off of him. I'm curious to see if he's another guy that, doesn't finish his career where he was drafted. I'd like to think not, but, I mean, who knows? It's just the contract right now does not look good. So hopefully next year he bounces back. Because, again, there are people out there that are skeptical of Trevor Lawrence. Because where he was drafted, they were expecting him to be up there playing at that level of a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson, a Joe Burrow, and he hasn't gotten there. You know, he's kind of been in that second or third tier. And where he was drafted, you expect him to be at the top. So, and I don't think it's all his fault. I think it's also the situation that he was put in. The 2021 season was, again, I kind of throw it out the window. But, you know, you got last year, this year. I mean, even in 2022, the season didn't start off great. But they finished the season strong, and you thought that was going to carry over. And it did. And then the second half of last year happened. And now look at the team. They're 2-10. You know, it's been a tough year for them. It was a tough year for Trevor Lawrence. And it's unfortunate that his season had to end the way it did. Because even before the injury, even before the concussion and the hit by Al Shire, you know, Trevor Lawrence didn't look right. So, you know, he's going to get surgery, and hopefully, you know, he's healthy going into next year, and he can put together a better year. Because, you know, now if you go into next year and you're healthy, and, you know, maybe the Jaguars, you know, bring in the right head coach, and, you know, they improve the offensive line, they address some needs, and Trevor Lawrence still doesn't play well, and you might have to have some conversations on if he should be the guy moving forward. And this is coming off of giving him that big contract. So that's really my thoughts on it. Again, it's unfortunate what happened with Trevor Lawrence, and I'm hoping next year he bounces back and he has a better year. But let me know what you guys think about the Trevor Lawrence situation. What moves do you think they'll make this offseason? You know, right now they got 2 wins. You know, you're in prime position to maybe get, you know, one of the best players in the draft, if not the best player in the draft, in Travis Hunter. So, you know, you bring him in, pair him with Brian Thomas Jr., you know, you got yourself a couple of good receivers. So, you know, we'll have to keep an eye on that. But let me know what you guys think about the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence in the comments. Before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will discuss Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk about him more, some more comments that he had on, you know, maybe playing for the Jets into next season. So we'll get into all that when we come back. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about Aaron Rodgers. Some more comments he had made recently about, you know, wanting to stay with the Jets and if that's even a realistic possibility. Now, I know we talked about this already, and, we talked about, is he going to get benched? That's not going to happen. Jeff Ulbrich has said that, he gives them the best chance to win, and he's going to be the starter going forward, which makes sense. I mean, at this point, why are you going to want to start Tyrod Taylor? You're not going anywhere. I think you just play out the season with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, and then, you make a decision after the season. And, it's just been tough to watch. It really has. I really was hoping that the Jets were going to have a good year, because a lot of people doubted them. A lot of people doubted Aaron Rodgers, and I was kind of hoping that, he was going to prove some people wrong, but he ended up proving people right. This ended up being a failure of a season. When he talks to the media, it doesn't really seem like, internally it definitely bothers him, but, when you see him, talking to the media, it seems like it doesn't faze him, but in some parts, at least some of the clips that I've seen from talking to the media. But this is what he said recently. This is on his future with the Jets. He said, "I just redid my house here in Jersey. My goal was to play a few more years here." But he also said, if that doesn't work out, he said he wouldn't be offended. It is what it is. I think he's gone after this year. Each passing week, each game with the Jets, how each game ends, it's not going to happen. They're going to move off of him. Now, if they don't, well, you got to hope that they bring in the right head. We just talked about this with the Jaguars, but you got to hope that they bring in the right people that are going to, fix this thing. But, it's similar to the team, that shares the stadium with them. You're going to trust them to make the right decision. I think at this point, the best course of action for the Jets is to let him go and start over, because it just didn't work out. And, it's not all his fault. I keep saying that. It's not all his fault. Is he a part of it? Yes. His play has not been what we were hoping for. At times this year, you're like, oh, see, he still got it. Even that first game against the 49ers, the couple of back shoulder throws that he had, that one drive that the Jets had to put them up against the 49ers, you thought, all right, this is it. And, they won those two games against the Titans and the Patriots, and then it just went downhill after that. Again, not all his fault, but he definitely needed to play better. And I think, Woody Johnson kind of pulled the plug on things a little too soon with Robert Saleh. I know he is not the best head coach. I knew he was going to be gone after this year. Probably should have been gone before the season. But I think you should have let Saleh and Joe Douglas stay. Well, Joe Douglas maybe to a lesser extent, but Robert Saleh I think should have stayed. And you let the season play out. And then after the year, then you clean house fully. And he didn't do that. They're just like, all right, we're going to get rid of him. We're going to promote Jeff Ulbrich. And let's see if that does anything. And it kind of just made the defense even worse, because the defense was not playing well this year. And then, it got worse once you let Saleh go. And the offense, has struggled a lot this year. The Cardinals game, they couldn't get anything going. But there's been 3 games this season where they could have very easily won them, but they lose them at the end. This past game on Sunday, you're up 21-6, and you let that lead slip away. And once it was 21-6, you didn't score after that. Against the Colts and against the Patriots, you had the lead, and then the defense just let the other team go right down the field and score a game-winning touchdown. Now, the game on Sunday, they put together a nice drive to put themselves up, 7-0 or 6-0, because they missed an extra point. The Seahawks also missed an extra point. That was a sloppy game. But, then the Seahawks fumble on special teams. Jets recover. They turn that into 7 or 8, I think, because they went for 2 and got it. And then they had a kickoff return. Other than that, or I think I might have mixed them up. But either way, you got 21 points from, bad special teams by the Seahawks. And also that opening drive. And then they didn't do anything. And, Rodgers has missed throws this year. Had Garrett Wilson wide open for a touchdown. And then on the very next play, he throws a pick six to Leonard Williams. Of all people, he throws it to Leonard Williams. It's been tough. Like, again, I said this. I don't think he's as bad as Peyton Manning was this last year. I don't think anybody is. Now, Peyton went out winning a Super Bowl. But you could see that he has declined. But the thing is, when he talks to the media, he doesn't. I mean, do you want? I mean, I don't know. What do you expect him to say at this point? I mean, we kind of know what he's all about. But do people expect him to say, "Yeah, I've fallen off. I'm terrible now"? Like, do you really expect him to come out and say that? I think some people are, but I think most people are expecting him to just take full responsibility because he does show accountability, but he'll also say, well, it's more than just me. There's 11 guys, and then obviously the Mike Williams situation earlier this year. He's a guy that people will say he throws his teammates under the bus when he says things like that. And he does that more so than just say, hey, it's on me. I'm the quarterback. And that's why you have a lot of people that don't like him. Now, I've been a fan of his for a long time. But that's just because of the talent. And that's because of the level of play and the great moments that we've witnessed with him being quarterback in the NFL for all this time. And, all this other stuff, all this outside stuff that's off the field, that's not really why I'm a fan of his. That's just something that comes along with it. But I'm a fan of Aaron Rodgers, the player. That's what it comes down to. And just seeing Aaron Rodgers, the player, playing like this right now, it's not fun to watch. Because I want to see him play better. And, at least maybe go out in the playoffs, but they're not even going to do that. I don't know what his future holds. But I do think there is going to be a team that is going to bring him in. If it's not the Jets, I do think a team is going to at least kick the tires off and say, all right, let's see if we can get something out of him that the Jets couldn't. I don't think it's going to be with the Jets. Now, if he goes out, if for some reason these last, few games here, how many games we got left? These last 4 games here. 5 games. Sorry, 5 games we have left. If he goes out there and he plays really well, then, maybe there's a chance he does come back with the right head coach and GM in place. But I feel like we're going to be saying this every week because I just don't see it happening. You got the Dolphins twice on the schedule. I mean, I think the Dolphins are going to torch the Jets on Sunday. Look at what they did to them last year. 31-0, right? I think that was the final score of one of those games in Miami. Now, I think the Jets will find a way to score some points, but, even if it's just 1 or 2 field goals. But, the Jets don't play, at least last year, the Jets did not play well against the Dolphins. And that's in large part due to, just the quarterback position. But, you had Tim Boyle playing quarterback. It's, you got them twice. You got the Jaguars. I mean, maybe, you could beat them, but I don't know. You also got the Rams left. You got to go to Buffalo one more time. Yeah, it's just they might finish with one more win, at least. And that would mean they would finish 3-14 on the season. 3-14 with Aaron Rodgers as your starting quarterback. Never thought that would ever happen. I mean, there have been years when Rodgers has missed the playoffs, but then finish with 3 wins. But I don't like how, people have started that narrative where it's like, well, at this point, Zach Wilson and the Jets had a better record. Well, it's a lot more than just that. They had a better defense last year. Their special teams was better last year. It's not just the quarterback. It's not. But I don't want people to think, oh, well, you're just defending Aaron Rodgers. No, Aaron Rodgers has not played great, but don't sit here and pretend like he's the sole reason why this team is 3-9. That's not the only reason why they're 3-9. There are so many other issues. At least last year, you had a defense that could keep you in games. And you know what? The defense actually, there was a lot of penalties, but the defense did play well on Sunday at times. It's just, when the opposing team has to put together a game-winning drive, they do it. And they did it again. So, it's been a disappointing year. And I had this team winning the division, but I was not one of these people that put them in the Super Bowl. I was not doing that. I said, hey, you win the division, you make the playoffs, maybe you advance to the divisional round. But that's it. I did not have them going to the Super Bowl. There was no way I was doing that. So, it may have been ridiculous to have them doing anything this year. But, I mean, you look at the talent coming in, you thought, all right, maybe Rodgers coming back, the defense playing well, they got this. No. Didn't happen. And we'll see what ends up happening after this year, but he's not coming back. He is not coming back. At least as a Jet. Also, he's got that Netflix documentary coming out, so I might have to see what that's all about when that comes out. But, yeah, that was just another thing I wanted to bring up. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the Aaron Rodgers situation. Do you think he comes back? Do you think he goes somewhere else? Do you think he retires? What's the most likely outcome? I don't know. I mean, it's either going to be he goes to another team or he retires, which I think I would say he retires. That's what I'm going to say. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. So we are going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about a team that, we kind of, really haven't talked about that much because, it's kind of been a lost season for them. But maybe it's not lost yet, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to talk about if they could still make the playoffs. Some of their players still think that's possible. So we'll talk about that when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Dallas Cowboys and whether or not it's a realistic possibility that, maybe they could still make the playoffs. Now, I was going through some things last night, try to figure out what to discuss, and you're probably sitting here going, well, you probably could have came up with something better than talking about the Cowboys, but because their season has been over. But, they've put together a couple of games against divisional opponents that they've won. They're 5-7, and the players still kind of believe that, hey, we got a shot. Micah Parsons has talked about it. Also, Dak Prescott has talked about it as well. The season's technically not over for them yet, but they basically have to win out and get a lot of help. And, who knows, but probably not making the playoffs. Probably not going to happen. A couple of quotes here from the article that I was looking at. So Mike McCarthy, talking about, the year as a whole, he said, as a staff, this is very challenging. As we've talked as a staff, we'll be better coaches because of this experience. I believe that I've experienced it in the past. That's what this league's about. It's not about players getting injured. It's really when and who the timing of it, getting the young guys ready to play as fast as possible. You have different levels of that each and every year. If you're going to coach in this league, you have to be able to coach through these times. I know all of us will be better for this experience. Also, you have Jordan Lewis talking as well in this. Feels like that because we know what we're doing. They also said we know what we're playing, or we know what we're doing, and guys are playing hard. We're executing the right way from all 11 of us on the field, so it feels good. We've been pretty good historically in the past, so we definitely have the confidence in each other that we can go out there and finish games. And then you also have Dak Prescott talking about the chances of making the playoffs. He said, yeah, I believe in it. The way that they prepare, I know the chance that Cooper gives them as a quarterback. You never know, really. You just got to line up and play every Sunday. We have, after we've gotten these 2 victories, getting that confidence and getting some momentum rolling. Now we've got our first win at home. That's right, because they did pick up their first win at home against the Giants, which was the middle part of the Thanksgiving festivities. I mean, it wasn't really that entertaining of a game, which none of us are really surprised by that. Cowboys got the win, but nothing really to take away from the game. But other than they just picked up another win. Also, Dak said, now we've got a great Monday night game coming in against the Bengals team who hasn't played, I guess you can say, much better than we have. Or actually, yeah, the crazy thing is the Cowboys have a better record than the Bengals do with everything that's gone on. He also said, or hadn't gotten wins anyways. They've actually been lights out on offense, but being able to get that win there and then going over to the Buccaneers, whose record is not far off from ours, if we were able to steal those 2, you're looking at a whole different picture with the Dallas Cowboys in the playoff picture. So I'm pushing forward and doing everything I can to make it possible. Well, thing is, he's not going to be playing. It's going to be Cooper Rush that's going to lead them to the playoffs if that's going to happen. But, and they're starting to get guys back. You got Brandon Cooks back, who scored a touchdown. DeMarcus Lawrence was injured. Hopefully get him back. Deron Bland, Zach Martin, Trayvon Diggs. They have a chance to come back against the Bengals. So, you're other than the quarterback position, you're getting, people healthy at the right time. But it's not enough. It definitely is not going to be enough for them to get in. Again, they would have to have a lot of things go right for them. So we look at the wild card right now in the NFC. So they are currently 4 games back. So they got to win out. And on top of that, you got to pass the 49ers, the Rams, the Cardinals, the Buccaneers. Now, you do play the Buccaneers, and you also have the Commanders on the schedule one more time. So if you can maybe steal those wins, that's that would be good for them. But it's just, I just don't see it happening. So this is what they have left. They got the Bengals, the Panthers, the Buccaneers, the Eagles, and the Commanders at home. I mean, you got, right now, the final 3 games are against 3 playoff teams. Now, you did beat the Commanders already, but I don't know. That's still going to be a tough game. Panthers have been playing better. And, the game on Monday, you got Joe Burrow and that elite offense. So, I don't really, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. Now, Cooper Rush, other than the game against the Eagles, he's played better. He's got 5 touchdowns to 2 picks on the season. But, yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not happening. It's just there's too many teams that they got to leapfrog over. Also, I did want to bring up, though, actually, the Thanksgiving game against the Giants. So they hadn't had a rusher go over 100 yards in quite some time. Rico Dowdle was able to do that against the Giants and their defense. So credit to him. Of course, against the Giants, that's when the streak ends. But, it's just they're a team that has struggled to run the football. CeeDee Lamb's a little banged up. Also, Jacob Ferguson as well. He got hurt. It's just it's not going to happen. Like I said, it's just not going to happen. Now, I mean, what do you want them to say? Yeah, no, we're done. Even with these 2 wins, it doesn't matter. I mean, look, if you still believe and you still think you got a shot, I mean, obviously you're going to treat these games like playoff games and, go out there and try to win. That's what they're going to try to do. And they still, appreciate Mike McCarthy. I don't think Mike McCarthy has lost the locker room. It doesn't seem like that. Dak Prescott speaks very highly of him. The way Jerry Jones is talking, Mike McCarthy might get another contract. So, Cowboy fans are not going to be happy about that if Mike McCarthy ends up getting another contract. They want to go in a different direction, but maybe that ends up not happening. So, yeah, I mean, they're going to continue to try to win games and, maybe they, finish with, a record around 500, but they're not going to the playoffs. It's not happening. I mean, the division is out of the question. And, you got all these teams in the NFC West that you got to compete with. And, you got one of the teams in your division, the Commanders, and you got the Buccaneers and the Falcons who, the Falcons have already beaten them. But, who knows what happens with the Falcons the way they've been playing as of late. It's too much to overcome. Too much to overcome. But, hey, you never know. I just don't think that they... I mean, when they play the Eagles again, the Eagles are going to beat them. They're not winning against the Eagles in Philly. I mean, it's just not happening. Even the game against the Panthers. I mean, you thought, oh, yeah, the Cowboys will easily beat them. No, not so fast. The Panthers are playing better. We talked about Bryce Young yesterday. Looks like a different guy. So, even the games against the non-playoff teams, the Bengals, I mean, look, Bengals defense is not good. But, Cooper Rush and that offense is going to have to keep up with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and now Chase Brown, and T. Higgins. I mean, it's, that's going to be a tough game. So, maybe prove me wrong then. I mean, hey, if the Cowboys make the playoffs, then I would have been right about them making it because I had them making it this year. But, I mean, I'm okay with them not making it. Just because, look, I'm not trying to see Cooper Rush start in the playoffs. I want to have the best matchups we could possibly have. And, right now, the way the playoff landscape is, I mean, it's, it's going to be good. Might be a couple of matchups, you got to get to the divisional round. Once you get to the divisional round, because the divisional round is regarded as the best weekend in football, or at least in the NFL. Some of the games, wild card weekend, you kind of are like, not very good. So that's why, people are like, all right, get me to the divisional round, because that's when you got the 1 seeds now are off the bye. That's when you got the best of the best usually. But hey, last year, the Packers were the 7th seed and they beat the 2-seeded Cowboys. So, we'll see if a 7th seed upsets a 2 seed this year. It's not going to be the Cowboys, though. Hey, maybe you got the 7th seeded Cowboys defeating the 2-seeded Packers. Because, the Packers are going to beat the Lions. And the Eagles have already beaten the Packers, so the Eagles would get the 1. The Packers somehow overtake the Lions for the 2, and the Cowboys somehow win out, get in as the 7th seed, and then they take on the Packers in Lambeau and beat them. Could you imagine? Yeah, No, you can't, because it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Yeah, but you know what? You still keep playing. Even if you're not out of it. We talked about this in our production meeting yesterday. About the Niners. Like, the season might be over for them. I mean, I think it's over. But do they still, keep playing? And it's like, yeah. I mean, you're still not entirely out of it. I mean, the 49ers have a better chance of making the playoffs than the Cowboys do. Because, if the 49ers went out, in my opinion, they probably make the playoffs, probably win their division. Because I'm still not sold on Seattle winning the division. I'm still not sold on it being them. But they gotta they gotta lead over the Cardinals, and they're 7-5. I still don't know how they lost to the Giants. It still doesn't make sense to me. But the 49ers, their season is not over yet. If they could, win out, odds are they're probably in. At least when it comes to the division. I don't know about the wild card, but I don't know. I just think the Niners, if you're talking about between the Cowboys and the Niners, I would say the Niners have a better chance. But the Niners got tough games on the schedule. So we'll see what happens. But, in terms of the Cowboys making the playoffs, it's not going to happen. There's too much that needs to go their way for it to be possible. It's just not possible. Focus on next year, and hopefully, you get your guys back healthy. And, I mean, we'll see what they do with the coach, because the coach might not be gone. We might see Mark McCarthy again next year. He might get a new contract. So, but let me know what you guys think. You think the Cowboys have a chance of making the playoffs? Winning 2 straight? Could they make it 3 straight on Monday? Well, we'll talk about the matchup on Monday. We'll get there. But, just thought that was something that I wanted to talk about today. So, we're going to take our final break of the show now. When we come back, we'll talk about who will win Offensive Rookie of the Year. We'll get into that conversation when we return. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL. Who should get that award? Because we did talk about that a little bit in our production meeting as well. And, I think there's 3. I mean, you could probably put 4, but I think really the top 3 at the moment you got to look at. Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and Brock Bowers. Now, Caleb Williams has started to play better as of late, so he's still going to be a part of that conversation, but I think that's what you got to look at right now. Now, Brock Bowers, I want to talk about him first because he's been great. He has been one of the lone bright spots of the Raiders and their season, their 2-10 season, Right now he's their leading receiver. He's got 84 receptions on the year. He's got 884 receiving yards, and he has 4 touchdowns. And he's coming off of a 140-yard performance against the Chiefs, which has been his best game so far. I mean, he's going to finish with over 1,000 yards. We'll see with how many touchdowns he finishes with. But he's been awesome. And he definitely deserves consideration. But, again, kind of like, the MVP, it's usually going to be a quarterback. Sometimes it's not, but it's usually going to be a quarterback. And also, I mean, you also got Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr., but I think it's going to come down to either Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix. And Bo Nix has played better as of late. Right now, he has 17 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Had a couple of picks in the game on Monday against the Browns, but, passed for almost 300 yards and also had a touchdown. I mean, if you go back to the game, starting with the game on November 10th against the Chiefs, he has 9 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. That's very impressive. And then you even go back even further to October 27th. He has 12 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Beginning of the year, first couple games wasn't great, but he's turned it around. And I think this race has gotten closer because, outside of this past week, Jaden Daniels started to struggle a little bit. And on the season for him, he's got 15 touchdowns to 6 picks. He's got 2,800 yards passing. But again, also in the running game, he's got almost 600 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns. So, I guess looking at that, you probably got to lean towards it's still Jaden Daniels. I mean, again, this year's not over yet. Things can change. But that's probably who you would look at as the leader. Because I was thinking, Bo Nix has been playing better. But, I mean, you look at the overall body of work for both guys, I think right now you'd have to give it to Jaden Daniels. And especially if the Commanders make the playoffs, which right now, I mean, look, it's getting a little close. That was a big win for them against the Titans. I would say you've got to give it to Jaden Daniels. But Bo Nix and the Broncos look like they're going to make the playoffs too. You're going to see a lot of teams that you did not expect to make the playoffs. Because I didn't have the Broncos making it. I didn't have the Commanders making it. The Chargers are another team that, I had on the outside looking in, but, they look like they're on their way to making the playoffs. Steelers, I didn't have them making it. But not to get off topic here, but yeah, I mean, credit to, the coaching staffs of both the Broncos and the Commanders because, in the beginning, those teams, those quarterbacks didn't have the best of debuts, but they've come along and they look like they are the future for both of those teams. And, the Broncos, the quarterback carousel that they've had to go through since Peyton Manning, I mean, from Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch and Joe Flacco and Case Keenum, all these guys, to now, you might have found your guy. And then the Commanders, they just refused to pay Kirk Cousins. And then, you also had Case Keenum for a year. Let's not forget that. You had Sam Howell for a little bit, Alex Smith as well, and then Alex Smith, of course, suffered that horrific leg injury. He did come back from it, and they won the division, but he just he retired, which was the right thing to do. You had Taylor Heineke, of course, and his magic for a little bit, but it looks like they found their guy, and. Like I said, credit the coaching staff. Cliff Kingsbury's done a good job with this offense. I mean, look at the year that Terry McLaurin has had. They finally found him a quarterback. Happy for him. And that team, it was a quick turnaround. Because I only had them winning 3 or 4 games this year. Because I just thought the defense was not going to be good, and I didn't know how well Jaden Daniels was going to play. I didn't know what to expect. But he's played well, and they're on their way to maybe making the playoffs. And then for the Broncos, yeah, I mean, I had them winning, I think, 5 games. I just really didn't know what to expect from Bo Nix as well. And it didn't get off to a good start, but, has started to play well. And, I brought up his stats from recent weeks. He's been good. And his supporting cast, there's not a lot of household names there. But when you got Sean Payton there, he's in the right spot. And, now next year, let's see what happens next year. Because you expect there to be an even bigger jump the way, Bo Nix is playing right now. So I did bring this up. This quarterback class, we'll see how it looks 5 years down the line, but could be one of the best draft classes when it comes to quarterbacks that we've had. Because, Caleb Williams, he's been playing better, and hopefully, the Bears figure things out for him next year, and he could put together a full season of, what he's done in recent weeks, and they give him better protection. You have him, and then we'll see what Michael Penix looks like, when he, eventually takes the field. It could be sooner rather than later, the way Kirk Cousins has been playing as of late. This has the potential to be a very good, and Drake May, there's, you could definitely make the argument for, several players. I mean, I think if Drake May would have started, from the jump this season, I think he would have had a better chance, but, because he came in late, probably not going to get it. But yeah, I mean, this is a good class. And, like I said, we go 5 years down the line and look back on it and see where these guys are at, what these guys have done. We could be like, hey, this was a really good quarterback class. So we'll see. But yeah, I think as of right now, you look at Bo Nix and Jane Daniels, probably lean towards Jane Daniels as the guy to win this award. But we still got some time left, so things can change. But it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the year plays out. Because like I said, Bo Nix and Jane Daniels, their teams could both be playing in the playoffs. It looks like it right now. So we'll see. But let me know what you guys think. Who do you think wins this award? Let me know in the comments. So we got a big weekend coming up, not just in the NFL, but also in college. You have conference championship games. We got some big games this weekend, tomorrow as well. You got the Mountain West Championship between UNLV and Boise State. So, going to try to, pay attention to that. Then also Saturday. I mean, Saturday is when you got the really big championship games. You got the ACC Championship between Clemson and SMU, the Big Ten Championship game with Oregon and Penn State, the SEC Championship game with Georgia and Texas. Those are the big games. And then earlier in the day, you also have the Big 12 Championship between Iowa State and Arizona State. We'll make sure to go over those games when we do our picks. But yeah, college football is going to be nearing the end. We'll see how this playoff format, how that all works. Because right now, the playoff rankings, you got Oregon at 1, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame at 4, Georgia 5. Ohio State took a big dip because of their loss to Michigan. Tennessee at 7, SMU 8, Indiana's at 9, Boise State 10, Alabama 11, Miami 12, Ole Miss 13, South Carolina 14. But, I mean, this is going to change, depending on how these championship games go. But I did watch that Ohio State-Michigan game. Now, I did think it was going to be close. I did not think it was going to be as low scoring as it was, but that's what ended up happening. And, we'll talk more about it tomorrow. But when we go over the games from last week as well as, going into the picks. But just a disappointing showing by them. by the Buckeyes. We'll see if they bounce back, though. They're going to be a playoff team, but, to lose a game like that against a non-ranked Michigan team, that was definitely disappointing for them. And it's just crazy watching that game and saying, I was in that stadium. It's hard to believe that, but I was. Hoping more trips like that come up, because that was a lot of fun going to that stadium. It's very different going to a college football game. Everybody should, if you're a big college football guy or college football person, and you haven't been to one, you should try to get to a game, because it's or a game like that, an atmosphere like that. It's very different from anything I've ever experienced. But that is with that. That's pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget, we got that big matchup tonight between the Packers and the Lions. Really looking forward to that game. Should be a good one. And obviously tomorrow we'll go through all the games for this weekend, the bowl game, the conference championship games in college football. We'll take a look at the games from last week. We'll also talk about the games in the NFL for this upcoming weekend. Kirk Cousins and his revenge game against the Vikings. We'll see how that goes. We got the Chargers and the Chiefs on the schedule as well. The Bills and the Rams. So, there are not the best slate, but, we'll find some games to cover. And obviously, this is a great game to start us off with the Lions and the Packers. It's probably the best game of Week 14. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. And make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video. And as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the game tonight, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't